The saga of Caddy continues. If you're still here and paying attention, then the last time we left you, we said we were going to the racetrack. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Just kidding, it is. We have a good day. The sun is out. The birds are chirping. And there is a place about 4 hours from here that is the land of carbureted small blocks with nitrous. It's a mythical place. It only exists in Texas, some parts of middle Georgia, and maybe northeast, like New York, where New Balance and screwdrivers are aplenty. No one at this track is going to hate on Jackie for taking the LS out of her car and putting a small block with nitrous in it. Well, except for me, but no one there will. That place is Extreme Raceway Park in Ferris, Texas. On Sundays, they have Test and Tune, Grudge, No Time. It's supposedly a pretty cool deal. I've never been there on a Sunday. I've only been there when we tested my car for MPK 2 years ago. The guy who runs the place, Galen Smith, he's a hero of mine, pro mod guy from back in the day. I mean, still a pro mod guy, but he was a beast. The guy that owns that place is where we bought my vet from, believe it or not. So a lot of stuff going on there. We're going to take this car 4 hours south of here to open Test and Tune. Hopefully there won't be a lot of people there, and we can test this car, shake it down. Jackie can get a feel for what the car is supposed to feel like, and I can get a feel for what the tune-up is supposed to look like. And we get to see if the converter is, fixed our problem, if everything's okay. We can start working on chassis stuff and start putting power down. We are taking 2 full nitrous bottles, just in case. If we get there and everything if somehow we win the shit luck lottery and everything just goes smooth, we make a couple motor hits, data looks great, vitals on the engine look good, we're going to strap a bottle in this thing and we're going to gorilla flame it. Here we go. Ferris, Texas, Extreme Raceway Park, headed your way. 4 hours. You just have to sit there and wait for 4 hours looking at nothing until we get there. But that's not right? You can clip it, edit it. It'll look like we got there lickety split. Perfect. Can you make it look like we weren't 2 hours late? Sweet. If you've been following along on this Caddy saga of taking a brand new car from scratch, testing it, making shakedown passes. If you've been following along, great. Then we are at the point where we're going to the racetrack today. If you haven't been following along and you're just now joining us, then you should go check out this playlist that Jackie made that's really cool, and it's called Testing Caddy, and you can get caught up on everything we've done so far, which is, doesn't seem like much if you look at the car, but it is. Go check it out. We were running a little late, Indian time, all that stuff. When we turned off the highway there, you can see the racetrack, and we were thinking it's New Year's Day. Everybody's been out partying all night somewhere, party people are everywhere. And we figured that this place would be dead. We figured nobody'd be there, just be us. We'd have the whole place to ourselves for $15 or whatever. But no. We turned the corner on the highway and that place looked like a national event. It looked like an NMCA race. But with more cars and people. There were people in the stands, so I guess it didn't look like an NMCA race. Maybe PDR, I don't know. It looked cool. Jackie started to get a little nervous. She was, she didn't want to bring her car out and, this new build and test it in front of people in the stands and stuff. But man, when you get there, it's a totally different vibe. I don't know how to explain it. The grudge game has always been weird. It's always been iffy for me. It's hit or miss. Sometimes you go to a grudge race and everybody hates you, and as soon as you pull up, they're trying to get you to race and trying to take your money, and then but then there's days like this where you show up and everybody's just so super cool, and if they ask you to race, you tell them, hey, it's a brand new car, we're just making some test hits, they leave you alone. It's just a really cool place. It really is. And packed full of nitrous cars and grudge cars and carbureted cars. And it was, you expect when you build a car like this, you're going to be one of the only ones there. No, this place is awesome. It was rocking, man. There were some really cool cars. They all had really cool names. The whole place was popping. It was pretty awesome. First pass was just going to be, we just need to get it over with. Whatever it is. That's what That's what you got to look at it with something like this. You know, you can worry about what everybody thinks. You can worry about the way it's going to look. You can worry about what you've said. You can worry about what they've said. You know, you can worry about all the shit you want to, but you just got to get the first one done, even if it's not right, even if it's not ready. Like, just got to get the first one done. Being it's the first pass, we got to get this one done. The best thing you can do is get data, and the best thing we can do here is just pull it back a little bit, pull the shift back a little bit. You know, keep the launch RPM down. I didn't go too much, but on the street we were at 5,000. So first pass I went to like 4,600 just to see. And then I did take some timing out. We're down around 32 degrees. So nothing crazy, but still, you know, pulling some power here and there and you know, taking the launch RPM out of it just so that we can see what happens when she lets go of the button. Because we don't know. On the street, it smoked the tires, but we don't know what it's going to do here. So we're just going to get something out there, you know. Like we say, even the best marksman in the world still has to zero his weapon. So, and the only way you can do that is to get it pointed in that direction and hope you get on paper. And then, because if you can get on paper, you can make the adjustments to go center mass. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to send it down range and get it on paper. I was a little worried because the last pass on the street, it smoked the tires. You know, I was a little worried it was just going to smoke the tires. So I dialed it back. And, you know, this is pretty normal for me. I dialed it back a little too much on the first one. So it was slow. It was really slow, actually. It was pretty slow. First pass was she stayed in it for 1.6 seconds. It went 1.39 to the 60 foot, but I mean, it smashed the tire, wrinkled the hell out of it, then spun one revolution, and then just, I mean, nothing. It was dead. Any track's going to be better than what we were at on the street. Well, I won't say any track, most tracks. But this track is considerably better. I'm not the guy who's going to say, oh, it's radial prep or it's too sticky or any of that, because whatever, but it was better than what we had been on. So it just grabbed the tire and stuck it there. It was just too loose. The rear's too loose. The shocks are too loose. The front's too loose. Everything's too loose. It's got too much bite, way too much bite. So it smashed the tire down, wrinkled the hell out of it, dead hooked the tire, and then spun it one or two revolutions and then just drove out of it. Judging by the data, you know, at first glance, the converter is a whole lot better. We launched at 4,800. It flashed to 5,600 with no dumps on or nothing like that. But then it drug the motor down all the way back to like, 5,000. And then it started to accelerate. Once it started to accelerate, it was actually running pretty good. I mean, even on that crap pass, the 330 time wasn't terrible. So, and she let out at 1.6. So we got something to work with. We are what I would say we are on paper. Now it's time to start dialing it in. If the bullseye is here and you got a 2 foot by 4 foot piece of paper, we're over here in the corner and we just got to start. It's nothing but clicks and clicks and just little things to get it closer to that center mass. So we start trying to figure out what's going on. Why is it so much different? I mean, obviously the track's a little better, but like what else is there? First time to the racetrack in a while. I totally forgot to check the water when I got there. Check the water, give it a couple twisties over the head, spin it around my head like a helicopter, and the water grains were 74 grains of water. What that means is, it's super scientific, technical, weatherman, meteorologist stuff. The more water that's in the air, the less oxygen there is in the air. Water don't burn. You end up with less oxygen. The water displaces the oxygen that would be in the cylinder head or whatever. So you end up having to run more timing advance, and less fuel and all kinds of stuff. So we had been testing in 40-degree, 30-degree weather on the street, and the water grains were 12 and 15 and crazy, insane underground, weather conditions. So the motor was making a little more power then. So when we got here and I dialed the power back, it probably wasn't a good move because the water grains would have dialed the power back for me, basically. That's part of going to the racetrack for the first time. There's a routine that you need to get into and stay into. And, first couple of times going to the racetrack, you miss a couple things in the routine. This is why we're here. That routine thing matters, because if you're tuning to a routine and you miss something in the routine, then, things get weird. To get a good plug reading, we needed the golf cart. We pushed the car up to the lanes. She fired it up and, right there in the water box, does a burnout, and it's got ice in it. So by the time she hit the starting line, and it was a burnout that was shorter because there's a longer distance at the track. So it was like we didn't have to back up and put it in the marks as much and all that. So, the time between doing the burnout and staging the car was considerably shorter than it was on the street, like by minutes almost. On the street, doing 2 burnouts and all that, the motor was warmer. At the racetrack, doing 1 quick burnout, not having to back up, put it in your marks and all that stuff, pull into the beams, the motor was considerably cooler. We're using the same amount of ice that we do on the street. We're talking 30 degrees, 40 degrees difference between the temperature of the motor on the street and at the racetrack. What that did was, the colder that motor is, the more fuel it needs. So not only was it lean and idle on the, in park and gear, it was also lean on the brake. And when she went on the brake, it stumbled, and luckily she caught it and she knows what she's doing and she feathered the gas, got it to go up. And we didn't have to abort that whole mission, but that's part of that routine. Next time, we're going to fatten the carburetors up because we got carburetors on this rig. It's pretty cool because you don't have to use a laptop or nothing, and you don't have to hook into it, or, you just get a screwdriver out and give it the old technical twist. Each one of them, there's 80 of them on there because there's 2 carburetors. So you're twisting on those things for 20, 30 minutes. So we got to get some fuel in the carburetor. We do that. We take each idle air bleed out, half a turn. Those screws on the side of the carburetor, they work at idle and when you first stomp the gas and all that. So that's going to help us a bunch. And the other thing was, when it was on the brake, it was lean. It was 14.4, which is pretty lean on the brake. So turning those idle screws out, honestly, I know a lot of people are going to say that they shouldn't matter, but they do. And it starts from a place of more fuel, and it's going to end from a place of more fuel, basically. So that'll help us there as well. And then the 4,800 launch RPM, that's just my fault, just because it smoked the tires on the street. I was just trying to make a pass. So the next pass, we're going to punch up the launch RPM. We'll go to 5,200 instead of 4,800. So on the street, we were at 5,000 and it spun. At the racetrack, we're at 4,800 and it dead hooked. I mean, smashed the tire. It was ugly. 5,000 probably ain't going to cut it on motor. So we're going to go 5,200. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add about 8 degrees of timing, 6 degrees of timing, because it was at like 31, 32. We're going to go to 36, 38. Actually we went to 37, I think 37 and a half. So we're at about 6 degrees of timing. We're going to make sure there's no launch retard. We're going to tighten the extension 5 clicks on the rear. We're going to tighten the extension in the front 5 clicks. We are going to add the timing to the main map, like I said. And then also the other thing I noticed, as you can see it in the video, even though it dead hooked and it was slow, you can see the car, as soon as she lets off the button, and then drives out of it. If you guys don't know what rear steer looks like, that's it. 100%, you can see it. That's rear steer. So on the street, we felt like the car was going a little left. We were talking about that. So we made an adjustment. With a stock suspension car, this triangulated 4-link, you can't really preload the top right bar like you want to. And, it's not like a regular 4-link like my car where you can preload the bar. On a triangulated 4-link, you got to use the anti-roll bar. I don't like using the anti-roll bar to preload a bunch of, weight onto one tire or another. So I did what I know to do, and that's put rear steer in it. So I pulled the passenger side of the rear end forward, and that will make it go straight if it was going left. But unfortunately, if you look at the video, we need 1,000 more horsepower to use the rear steer that we got. I think it'll make it through tonight, and we can make adjustments when we get home. But man, that is as clear as it can get right there. You can see it. It just, as soon as she lets off the button, it does this, and then it drives out of it. If it had a bunch of power, it would have wheel speed, so it wouldn't do it as bad, but it would still do it, and then it would drive left and go right in the middle. That's what it's supposed to do. So we probably got, a couple flats too much rear steer in it, but whatever. We'll fix that later. The other thing I noticed was the tires are low on air, in my opinion, with as much bite as it has and much, sticky as the track is and all that, and as much leverage as the 4-link has and much weights in the rear of this car, 15 pounds of air, 14 and a half pounds of air just ain't going to do it. So we're going to go up to 15 and 3/4, 16, almost 16 pounds of air. And we tighten the rear compression 4 clicks. So we're tightening everything, basically. We don't use a lot of anti-squat, so it's not going to separate, I don't know how to do all that. So I only know one way to race, and that's, set the car down and go. So by tightening the compression, by tightening the extension, it's not going to come out as fast. By tightening the compression, it's not going to roll over as hard. Hopefully on this next one, we'll have a little bit more wheel speed. Plus, we're raising the launch RPM. We're doing a lot of things here. This thing, this should put us a lot closer to that bullseye mark. Yeah. Woof. Woof. Man, looking at this data, it was worse than it looked on video. It was worse than it looked in person. So the changes that we made they made changes. This was a big change. It's a big old change. I'm so used to this car. I'm making big changes to it every week, every day, and it's not making the swing I need it to make. And so I made a big swing here, and man, it was a big one. That motherfucker didn't move. It fucking, as soon as she let it go the button, it still tried to smash the tire, but then it was on. I mean, it just smokes the tires, kicks over, she pedals it. Now, we have talked about this, me and her. We have talked about this. We have talked about, it's a new combo. We're not out here racing nobody, I don't know what it is about me, but everybody I tune for is racing. I mean, they're fucking racing, Jack, no matter what's going on. There was nobody in the left lane. This was just Jackie, right lane. Nobody else. And I told her, don't run it past, whatever, 200 foot or whatever. Let's just keep it, we went 60 foot on the first one. Now let's go 150 if it'll go, maybe 200 if it feels good, but then we need to click it there and check plugs. This thing smokes the tires. She pedals it, whacks right back into it, and then runs it to 2.5 seconds, So, pretty cool. Like, she's racing. That's what she does. She's racing. Drive shaft at 1/4 of a second. Drive shaft at 1/4 of a second was 1,800. At 28 was getting it. And then at 1/2 second, drive shaft was 3,300. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all. We missed it. We shanked it. She didn't. I did. This thing, it lit up like a Christmas tree. So the fuel, whoa. Like those carburetors, man, I'm not saying that, I'm making the change to carburetors or nothing. I'm not like going that way, but I will say turning those screws a 1/2 turn, it made a big difference. I mean, we were 14.4 or something on the trans brake before, and now we're 12.8. Like that's, that worked. And It didn't stumble. The idle was good. It wasn't lean. Everything was perfect. It went right up on the brake. Everything's great. Most of our changes are working. The power management changes, though, however, not working. The shock changes, they didn't get a chance to work. We just smoked the tires. We went from too slow to too fast. So now, we need to go somewhere in the middle of those two, you know what I mean? So we were over here on the paper, we need to be in the bullseye, and then we went off the paper. Now we need to go in between the two somewhere. So that's part of it, though. You got to figure it out. But now I know what this thing, we go somewhere and we need to make a change. I know not to make that one. You know what I mean? Every time we fill in these boxes here, you know which one not to make on the next one. So, and that's why I keep, all the notes. So now we're going to try and make some forward progress. So on the third lick, what we need to do is we need to be faster than the first one, but not as fast as the second one. I still feel like it's trying to wad the tire. I still feel like it's got too much bite. We don't have time to make a 4-link change here. So we're just going to have to do it with shocks and power management. So we're going to back the launch RPM down from 5,200. We're going to go to 5,000. That's in between, right? 48, 52, right in the middle of 5,000. That's where we're going. We're going to take the timing, and instead of being at 38, we're going to be at 34 and a half, 34. So we were at 31, 32, then we went 37, 38. We're going to go right about in the middle and go 34, 33, 34. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to turn on, and I know I probably shouldn't, but I'm a little worried that it smoked the tires because the converter's too tight. I know before our converter was way too tight and it wouldn't even spin the tires. But I think there's a curve. So like when you get the converter in the ballpark, it can be too tight and it's too aggressive and it will smoke the tires. Whereas when it's way too tight, it won't do shit. If it's way too loose, it won't even move. If it's way too tight, it won't put the motor in the RPM. I think we're on the verge of being maybe a little too tight still. So I'm going to open the internal dump on the trans brake and try and let this thing accelerate. And what that'll also do is that'll keep the tire from just zipping off. So it'll soften the hit when you let go of the trans brake. It'll soften the hit on the tire. What we want to do here is this is going to be our last hit of the night. When they announce staging lanes are closing. So this is going to be our last hit of the night. So we want to get something, and we want forward progress. We want to go faster than we did on the first pass. We don't want to smoke the tires again. So we're going to open a dump, pull some timing, take some launch retard out of it, or not take some launch RPM out of it. I'm going to shorten up the 1-2 shift. Even though she didn't get to the 1-2 shift, I feel like she will this time. So I'm going to shorten up the 1-2 shift so it don't zing out there and zip the tire off or something stupid. And I'm going to see if she can take it to 300 foot. And because so far, all the EGTs, plugs, pan vac, all looks beautiful. Everything on this thing is money. This thing's waiting on us. Like the motor is ready. Motor's perfect. It's singing. It's happy. It's waiting on us to make the right decisions behind the motor and then in the tune-ups. So that's what we're going to try and do here. Third pass, 4,800, pull the 1-2 shift back, open a dump, take some timing out. Let's see what happens. Hey, man, this shit ain't easy. If this shit was easy, everybody'd be doing it, You're making these decisions on a car that you've never tuned before, just, on a combo that you've never had before. It's just not easy. It was faster than we had been. It's forward progress. But I can see some things that I should have just trusted some, instincts and not changed a few of the other things. Opening the dump was probably a bad idea. It didn't have any zip when she let go of the brake. It had too much zip. Now it has less than no zip. It's dead when she let go of the brake. So it smashed the tire and it just dead hooked, and it was rough. It had drive shaft speed a quarter second was 470, which is just too soft. So what that does is when that tire's dead stuck at a quarter, at a half, it's usually going to be high. And then at 3/4, it's going to be down. And then at 1 sec, it's just going to keep that oscillation going. And you can't apply power when the drive shaft is spinning and hooking and spinning and hooking. So really that first quarter second is crucial. At a half a second, of course, it had 1463. So it bounced up, spun just a little bit, and then came back down. But then when it came back down, it didn't have any power. It didn't have any zip because the dump was open. And so at 3/4 of a second, it was only 1200. So this thing was just dead. In my opinion, that's probably the worst 60-foot this car can make besides the very first pass. It still went 136 to the 60-foot on motor. That's nothing to write home about. There's a lot of guys who struggle to go 136 with a power adder on a 28, especially in an all factory body panel car, and power windows and all that shit. So, it's not terrible. Now, here's the cool part. Once it got past there, then you see something. You know what I mean? That's when you see the G meter start to flatten out and stay. Instead of just dropping, it starts to flatten out and stay. And then all of a sudden, this thing starts accelerating. Unfortunately, though, man, Chief just fucked there smooth, just got dead. You know what I mean? Because remember I said I pulled that 1-2 shift back? Man, it made it to the 1-2 shift. And it shifted at 6,800 or 6680 RPM. That's what it shifted the 1-2 at. If you'll remember, this motor made peak torque at 7,300. This thing needs to be shifted at 8,800 or higher. Shifting this thing at 6,600, it started to make bacon, and then we just cut its knee, just cut him right at the knees, cut his legs off, just clipped his nuts right there. So then, of course, it drops. RPM drops all the way to 5,700, and then, God, But she stays in it. We said we were going to go to 300. She took it to 300. That's what she did. So she stayed in it. It picked back up. Once the RPM got above 6,500, it really started moving. G meter flattens out again, up well over 1 G. Air fuel, of course, is perfect. The fuel curve on these carburetors, if I had EFI, honestly, I'd be fucking with that. And I'd be missing other things because these carburetors, because I can't adjust them, there's no computer adjustment. I can't find out where to hook the USB cable to on the carburetors yet. I keep looking, but I ain't found it. Because of that, I'm not messing with the fuel, but I don't need to because these things, the fuel curve is money. Absolutely money. EGTs are perfect. She runs it out there to about 3.2, 3.3 seconds, clicks it there. It goes 393 to the 330. What can you ask for? If you're clicking this thing at 3.3 and it was a turd early, it went 136 early and it still goes 393 clicking it. That's potential is what that is. I was surprised at that. It's still nothing, it's not. You're not going to write home about 393 to the 330, but when all the other incrementals look the way they do, it's something that's, that's like, oh, like when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a second, we got something. Then she coasted. Didn't hit the gas at all until the turnaround or whatever. Went 667 at 77 miles per hour in the 8th mile. So, hey, man, that's not that fucking bad, really. It is. It is. For what the car is, it should, this thing ought to go 550s on motor. But still yet, you click it at 3.3, you coast to a 667 at 77 mile an hour, and you had a 136 front, to the first cone. Like, that means it was fast somewhere. It had to be fast somewhere. There's a lot of nitrous cars. There was a lot of nitrous cars at that track that wouldn't run 660 on motor, and they run, really fast. That was potential. That was the most potential I've seen out of this deal so far, other than the burnouts. She does obviously killer burnouts, but the other thing is, we're getting the routine. So we're getting it. We're starting to get somewhere with it, where we're learning how much ice to put in it. We're learning how to keep the temperature the same, because that's another thing, man. The temperature swing on a carbureted car is tough because It's got this giant camshaft, tunnel ram intake. It doesn't make a lot of intake manifold vacuum. So when you put this thing in gear, it drops to 2 inches of vacuum, or 1.5 or something. That's not pulling fuel from the carburetor. So, so you got to make sure and get that temperature right, because if you have a 40-degree temperature differential from when you start the car to when you turn it off, it's not going to run the same. There's nothing you can do about it. So we're getting that right. The car's idling great. It goes on the brake clean. It's, everything's coming around. Now it's literally just make it faster every lick. Lanes are closed. Unfortunately, we don't get the 4th hit. We were talking about this, and Jackie reminded me that this is kind of my thing. She said, every time we go anywhere, this is what you do. She said, if you put something back together, if you just build something, the first one's going to be light. The second one's going to be way too hot. The third one's going to be back to too light. And then the 4th one, going to be just right. But, lanes were closed, so we didn't get the 4th one. So now we got to go back. We got to go. I know what I said, but, we got to go back to the racetrack, and we have got to get this thing to go to the 8th mile, all the way to the stripe, under power. And the plugs have looked perfect. The EGTs look perfect. The data look pan back. Everything's beautiful. I'm going to make a stator change in the converter, because I think we can go a little bit looser there and still be able to spray it, because right now it's dropping a lot on the shift. So we still got plenty of room to, it's not like we're making this thing so loose we can't use nitrous. We could put a big shot of nitrous on this thing still. So, we're going to keep working on it, make a few small changes here and there, and then we're going back to the track the next nice weather day. I'm hoping in a few days here, maybe Friday of the next week or whatever, we're going to go back to the track. But we got to get this done soon. And I don't want you guys to think we're just going to keep doing this forever. We weren't planning on, doing anything crazy till the car is right. But, we're getting close. Car's getting close to right. We got a date in mind and a race in mind. We got to get this done soon. So the pace is about to pick up. So get your running shoes on, put your New Balance on, put your screwdrivers in your pocket, grab your nitrous flow tools, meet me back here in a few days, and let's see if we can make this thing run. Well, bye.